Hello there, and welcome to the 6th edition on News Central TV, coming to you live from our studios in Abuja. I am Neota Ebe, and here are our top stories. Senate passes Electoral Act bill as protests resume over real-time transmission of votes. Saudi Arabia announces sighting a crescent moon as fasting begins Wednesday. United States civil rights leader Jesse Jackson dies at 84. Details shortly. The Nigerian Senate has concluded its emergency plenary with a major amendment to the 2027 election timeline and a decisive vote on the controversial electronic transmission proviso. Meeting in the Committee of the Whole, the upper chamber successfully amended Clause 28 of the Electoral Act 2026, reducing the mandatory notice period for elections from 360 days to 300 days. The adjustment is aimed at preventing the 2027 general elections from coinciding with the holy month of Ramadan and the Lent period. The session, however, turned volatile during the consideration of Clause 60, subsection 3, as lawmakers clashed over the backup plan for result transmission. Despite intense opposition and a formal demand for a division by lawmaker Aina Baribe, the Senate maintained the proviso allowing for manual collation should electronic transmission fail. The decision followed a rare head count and individual voting process which saw the majority overwhelm the opposition's push for mandatory e-transmission.
Senate equally notes that upon further critical review of the bill as passed, it has been observed that the 360 days notice requirement prescribed in Clause 28 may result in the scheduling of the 2027 presidential and national assembly election within the period of Ramadan. If the essence of his call for division is for him or any other person, with due respect, who wants Nigerians to see where he stands, or who especially wants his political party to see where he stands, let it be so. Now, we are not doing anything here based on emotions or sentiment.
Yes.
We are not doing anything here because we want people to clap for us. We are here doing things in overriding public interest.
Point of order by the leader sustained. I have stated time without number. The last time Senator Abaribe withdrew his call for division, he was attacked on the social media. He has a right. Yes, it's an opportunity for him to correct it. So what Senator Abaribe is asking for, Senator Plan, what Senator Abaribe is asking for is that he would like to be seen there in the social media.
Mr. President, that is not true. I am talking for Nigerians, not from Senator Abaribe. I want Nigerians to know. I want Nigerians to know.
Okay, Senator. Okay, so Senator Abaribe. Senator Vito, man, don't distract Senator Abaribe. He's on a very important national assignment, and the social media is watching. So now, move your motion.
Mr. President,
He wants to move a motion for division. If he's not moving a motion for division, then go into
Mr.
the order,
President,
and I'll rule.
Order 72. 1. Any senator may challenge the opinion of the president by claiming a division. So I'm calling for a division.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Point of order by Senator Abaribe, calling for a division on the provision of yes.
Sound. How are you?
It's not. It's calling for a division on section 63, which gives the presiding officer. So if you are in support that the proviso, which enables the presiding officer to proceed to the next center for collation with the hard copy of the sign from EC8A, so that collation can continue. If you are in support that the word proviso remains to enable the presiding officer to do so after imputing all the items, can you rise and raise your hand so that the public can see you? Come and count. Come and count. Sorry. Sergeant at arms, count. Only raise your hand. Don't open your mouth. Raise your hand. Stand up, raise your hand. Don't open your mouth so that the public can see you. Because the social media must see you. I said you should, wherever you are, stand up and be counted. The results are as follows. Those who do not want any proviso are 15 in number. And those who want the proviso are 55 in number. And so the proviso says.
Interesting times, you might say, at the Senate's chamber today. Well, yeah, Sagir Ibrahim was in that chamber, and he's here in the studio with me right now. Sagir.
Yes, sir.
Were you laughing or smiling like this when you're in the chamber?
Well, yes, sir. First of all, it's not a laughing matter. I do not think that Nigerians were laughing as well, because quite a number of them were outside of the entrance of the National Assembly, chanting and demanding for one of the clauses or one phrase that seems to be, or that seemed to have become the most popular in Nigeria over the course of the last few weeks, and that is real time. The expectation that the lawmakers, will add the phrase real time in section clause 60 sub 3 of the Electoral Act to capture for the real-time transmission of results, and also to make it mandatory that real-time transmission of results becomes the only means of transmitting results, from the polling unit, and of course to the IREF portal when voting is done, and of course collation process has commenced. But then the Senate, in their own wisdom, has made the decision, which in their own interest, in their own wisdom, like I mentioned, seem to be what's in the best interest of Nigeria. So here we are.
What the Senate did today was what was done before, besides the reduction in the timeline from 360 to 300. Every other thing stayed the same. So there will be that thing about why even bother coming to sit for a plenary? Why not allow the unifying, because there's a committee that's supposed to...
Conference and Harmonization Committee.
The Harmonization Committee. Why not allow the Harmonization Committee to handle that bit about reduction in time?
Well, it could be as a result of the fact that once the Harmonization and Conference Committee has been set up, the expectation is not for them to add anything to the draft bill, but rather it's an issue of selecting or adopting one for the other. So the House of Representatives has drafted its own copy. The Senate has drafted its own copy and passed that copy. The responsibility of the Harmonization Committee is to look at these copies and decide which clause goes for which clause. So in the case of the clause 60 sub 3, it's for the House of Representatives, the Harmonization Committee, to look at what the House has passed and look at what the Senate has passed and decide which of them go, but not a situation where they add to the document. They cannot add to the document. If there was an opportunity to add, perhaps it could have been in this committee of a whole review that we saw now.
I wrote something down here. I said Senate President romance with the social media. I mean, he talked about the social media out there, how the social media is watching.
Well, Nyota, I would say it's for them, it's also a matter of justification. So social media has become widely known as the source of information for millions upon millions of Nigerians out there. Of course, most get information from the traditional media, but especially young Nigerians get from the social media. And you would agree with me that the social media was agog just last week when Senator Iyenaya Abaribe from Abia State, had exactly. So he had declared the division and then he withdrew that statement. So I think for him, it was a matter of trying to prove himself and to follow through with an earlier decision that he wasn't able to do. We saw him declare the same division, insisting that individually they must vote and identify those who are in support of and who are against. But I mean, in usual fashion, in a situation where the minority continues to bicker, the majority allows for what is supposed to happen, and they have their way. The minority have their say. But in this case now, it's looking like even Nigerians and the Nigerians generally have also been swayed to the side of the minority, because we agree that a large majority of Nigerians, in the interest of the credibility and accountability of INEC in the forthcoming election, wanted for that clause to remain.
Thank you so much, Sagir. But staying with the National Assembly, tension flared at the National Assembly following the release of tear gas canisters by security operatives to disperse a protest by the citizens demanding that lawmakers amend the nation's electoral act to allow real-time transmission of election results. What began as a peaceful gathering ended up with protesters scampering for safety following the intervention of a combined team of security operatives, which prevented them from advancing towards the complex. Our correspondent Joshua Imari was there, but we'll be looking at what he has put together after we come back from this break. Welcome back. Before we went on that break, we're telling you about a situation outside of the National Assembly where some Nigerians gathered to demand the inclusion of the real-time clause into the amendments being made by the Senate. Well, the Senate has made its decision, but the guys that were outside in the peaceful protest were not so fortunate, as they were dispersed with tear gas by security operatives. We'll bring you that report by our correspondent Joshua now.
These were moments before the peaceful protest over electoral reform spiraled into chaos. Protesters under the banner of the Movement for Credible Elections assembled at the entrance of the National Assembly, calling on lawmakers to adopt provisions that guarantee real-time electronic transmission of election results.
It's very clear without ambiguity. And what they have done is to already they're basically preempting us for the fact that they are planning to do exactly the provisos that they have put to that clause. Is that what we should take?
No. What we are doing here today is our right. Yes, sir. And it's our love for the country we are expressing. Yes, sir. They cannot be too sure that every part of Nigeria will continue to wait and protest peacefully like this. So the earlier they abandon that attempted coup and do the right thing, the best for the country.
The protest began with speeches and a press briefing, but later escalated when demonstrators attempted to move closer to the main gate of the complex. Security operatives resisted the move and subsequently fired tear gas canisters to disperse the crowd.
The Nigerian police force approached with extra vans, with extra policemen, and they are raining tear gas, as you can see from the visuals.
In the ensuing confusion, some protesters alleged harassment by security personnel, while a driver said to have conveyed demonstrators to the venue was forcibly dragged away by armed officers.
Why did he beat you? I know.
Who the driver did they say we know we
one chaga they throw the chaga. I see one small girl, the woman they cry. I call it the picking charge. I put her throw the girl. I say, Oga, I beg her, say Oga my binu. I beg me not to again. Before I know, back. I saw Oga, see my ID card. See my, I show him. We go see him for what's up. I say, see my ID card. I'm a driver, see my beg, my binu.
Although the protesters were eventually dispersed, organizers insist the agitation is far from over. They warn that failure by the National Assembly to address their demands could trigger a nationwide protest. In Abuja, for News Central, I am Joshua Imarayi.
Well, it was a rain of tear gas in front of the National Assembly today, and my colleague Joshua Emari was there, but he's here in the studio now, and you're looking much better.
Thank God, I was blind earlier today.
But now you can see.
Yeah.
What do you think led to the deployment of tear gas? I mean, everybody was just there singing from the footage here.
Well, on several attempts, some of the demonstrators, particularly Omoyele Sowore, tried gaining access into the National Assembly complex. But several times, the security personnel there pushed them back. So, seeing that a vehicle was approaching the gate and the gate was left open, they rushed to the gate. But the security personnel there acted swiftly and shut the gate. They were trying to scale over over the gate, and unfortunately for us, all hell let loose. So the moment that tear gas was dispersed, I think they radioed some of their colleagues from other areas, and immediately they dispersed a large amount of security operatives to that area, and it was all raining tear gas canisters upon tear gas canisters.
But nobody was arrested.
Some people were arrested, and we did a close coverage of it, but the demonstrators had their powers in numbers, and they took those persons that were taken into the custody out of those police vans. They rescued some of them, and they released so many people. So nobody was taken into custody today.
Thank you so much, Joshua.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you can see the footage of what transpired today. I'm not sure you heard Mehdi when he was talking. Mehdi was one of those that was under the rain of the tear gas. We'll still hear from him briefly today before he leaves the newsroom. But here in the studio, I have a legal practitioner, Deji Adeonju, here in the studio. Deji, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start from this, the call for that inclusion of real time. I mean, the real time transition of results by electronic means.
Yeah.
Is it not a viable call? Let me put it.
Of course, it is a viable call. Only election riggers and manipulators will be afraid of real-time results. If you are not popular, why wouldn't you vote no? You will vote no. But if you are very popular and you truly have the mandate of the people, you will definitely vote yes to real time, because that is one of the ways of eradicating rigging and election manipulation of results generally. In the National Assembly, we have seen people's fathers voting no and proudly doing so against the people of Nigeria. The people of Nigeria that have elected you, they have elected you so that you can go and put in legislation. They didn't elect you to go and be lobbying for constituency projects so that you can get a piece of the national cake. They elected you so that you can go to the National Assembly, and promulgate laws that will be, progressive for the development, advancement of electioneering in the country. But alas, the reverse is the case. We have a situation where people have gone to the National Assembly, and it now appears as if they've taken an oath against the Nigerian people. They've sworn to an allegiance, a secret allegiance. Yes, a secret allegiance with the enemies of Nigeria to vote against the people of Nigeria. It's very, very unfortunate. I had said humorously via a tweet that some people had approached me and said that I should come and join them in electoral reform advocacy and protest. And I said, no, I cannot do that when someone like Akpabio is the Senate president. When you have characters who should be attending to animals in the zoo, leading the country, I will not, because it means I'm making a mockery of myself. Because I already know the eventual outcome from the beginning when this campaign started. Because how do I convince myself that I am agitating for Akpabio to make the right call? He would definitely not make the right call, and I've not been proven wrong at all by the outcome of today's proceedings.
There was a question someone asked me today. I mean, yesterday at the EFCC headquarters, there was a rain of tear gas, and someone asked me the same question today. So I'll bring that question back to you. But let's just hear from Mehdi, who was there, a bit of what he went through. Mehdi, I understand we can hear you now. So just tell us what was it like? What transpired in front of the National Assembly today?
We're actually having a very peaceful protest. Like you can see, I still have my glasses on because my eyes are still, not so good. We're actually having a very peaceful protest. Before these armed men came, They were just shooting tear gas. They even shot at my car. You know, it was that bad. Then everybody started running. It was very, very peaceful because while we're having this protest, we moved closely to the gate because a lot of people were passing and our voice was not being heard. We heard they were doing a lot of stuff in there and it was not going the way we planned it. And that tear gas started coming and we ran away and we came back because some persons were arrested. And we came back to actually free those persons from the police because they were about taking them away. And my car also was towed from that venue. Well, we actually went back to get my car back. It was actually a very peaceful protest. But what we didn't understand was when they called, they called their people, they came, a lot of policemen came, like about 6 to 7 vans came and they started shooting tear gas on the peaceful protesters. We're not with even knife, we're not with knife, nothing, not even with catapult, yes. But they came and they started shooting tear gas, different tear gas, and they were even threatening to shoot, But we could stand and we're not moving, and they just have to. But there was something I saw from these policemen. They were actually agreeing to what we're doing, but I think there were others coming in there, shoot, just shoot tear gas, scare them away. And I could see them receiving those orders because they were making calls.
But you guys have said that you'll be back there again tomorrow, as in your demands have not been met. So
no, right now it's not just about the National Assembly. Right now we're planning to go nationwide. It's not just about the National Assembly, but we'll go nationwide, just like the NSAS, but we'll go nationwide, definitely.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mehdi, and we wish you well.
Thank you.
Mehdi Olotu is a human rights activist. But Deji, you have, before you became a lawyer, I mean, knowing you the first time I met you was as a rights activist. So let's start from here. Someone asked me a question yesterday and today. He said, is there a law or is there a guidance to the use of tear gas? Because yesterday in front of the EFCC, a peaceful protest, a peaceful gathering, tear gas was used to disperse them. Today again, tear gas was used to disperse Nigerians who had come to demand a certain amendment to a law. I mean, is there a law to the use of tear gas?
You see, basically, it is very ironic that when we had a group protesting that they are in support of the evil that the National Assembly is doing, they were not tear gassed. There was a group, a pro-manual transmission of result. They had a protest. They were not tear gassed. There was a pro-government protest at the EFCC. They were not tear gassed. But the anti-government one were tear gas. The anti-manual transmission were tear gas at the National Assembly. And protest is a fundamental human right. Protest is not a crime. I don't understand where they resort to use of force. As long as the people are not being violent, are not taking the laws into their hand, and there's a procedure under our laws that a protest can move from protest to riot. And there are procedures laid down under our extant laws for a protest to move from protest to riot. And every step must be taken. An officer must make specific announcement dispersing the protest. When the repeated announcements have been made as laid down under the law, and the protesters have become rowdy, have taken laws into their hands, they are damaging public property, then sequel to that, the officer of the law cannot make the pronouncement that this protest is no longer peaceful, and that by the virtue of the law that he's hereby dismissing the protest. So he makes the announcement. Then when the announcement has been made repeatedly and over again, and they refuse to disperse, then minimal force may now be used. And what is minimal force? Minimal force can be understood to be maybe water cannon. You can use water cannon to disperse the crowd. But why using tear gas? Why using live ammunition? The protesters are not taking up arms. We have not seen any evidence, empirical or otherwise, suggesting that the protesters have taken up arms, or attacking security agencies, or attacking other Nigerians, or even disrupting vehicular movement, or damaging public property or private properties. So these are the grounds. Our laws have provided grounds for which a protest can move from a protest to a riot.
So
the only condition or ground for use of force is when a protest moves from protest to riot. If it has not become a riot, even when it has become a riot, you can still not apply force. There are condition precedent that you must.
So in this case now, who would hold the police accountable for this deployment?
The reason why this lawlessness we protested for Electoral Act Amendment in 2011. I was on the street. We protested for Electoral Amendment in 2015. In 2019, the only reason we started protesting before I was arrested and locked up by the Buhari regime, and they did not allow me to even vote in that election. The only reason why I'm not protesting now is because the likes of Akpabio of this world are in charge of the National Assembly. I cannot, in all good conscience, go to the street to go and be protesting and asking Akpabio to do the right thing when I know for a fact, except if I just want to play to the gallery, when I know for the fact that Akpabio does not have the character of person to do the right thing. This current National Assembly, the Allowed National Assembly was a rubber stamp. This current National Assembly is worse than a rubber stamp. These are political bandits. These are political bandits. They should not be in the National Assembly.
You're using very strong statements.
Of course.
You're taking responsibility.
I take full responsibility for calling the current National Assembly that we have in Nigeria political bandits. They do not have the interest of the Nigerian people at heart, and they do not have the capacity to do the right thing. And I will not be a fool to go on the street to go and say, I want to demand for them to do the right thing, because they will not do the right thing.
Didier Deonju, a legal practitioner and human rights activist, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
We look forward to having more of you in our studio.
Fireworks with me anytime you call.
Thank you so much. We'll take a moment, and when we'll come back, we'll be looking at legislative proceedings. Just stay with us. Welcome back. Staying in the National Assembly, members of the opposition parties in the House of Representatives staged a walkout in protest against the passage of clauses 60 and 80 of the Electoral Act, accusing majority in the House of partisan interest ahead of the electoral integrity. This followed the adoption of Clause 60, which provides for both real-time electronic transmission and manual transmission of election results, as they say that elections should be transmitted electronically without exception.
Yes, we are against any clause that will give room for any manipulation or rigging or leeway for any untoward act. And so we have asked that that clause should remain solely for electronic transmission without any provisions. Aside that, we have also proposed that where there is a conflict between from EC8A, which is manual and capable of being manipulated, and the electronically transmitted results, that the electronically transmitted results should be precedence over the manual. These positions were turned down, and we are aware that they were turned down by members of the APC, not on grounds of patriotism, but on grounds of political party affiliation. And so,
my colleague Idong Joseph was in that chamber, and he's here with me now. Idong, in December, the House of Representatives passed an amendment to the Electoral Act that talked about electronic transmission and real time. Nothing manual was mentioned there. What happened?
Well, I would say the House of Representatives now is trying to harmonize the Electoral Amendment Act. That's what we're saying now, because in December 2025, when it passed the Electoral Act, what was stipulated there was mandatory transmission of election results, electronic transmission of election results in real time from the polling units. But today, what we are seeing is adding the clause saying that
where electronic transmission fails,
then there should be manual transmission also. So I think it is trying to harmonize it, not waiting for the Harmonization and Conference Committee to do its work, but trying to make it fit with what the Senate has in place already.
The opposition members that are walking away screaming, we're calling the APC names. I mean, what was the reaction like within the Green Chamber?
Well, before that very that footage you saw, there was a rowdy session immediately. I think 30 minutes when the plenary session started. There was a rowdy session when the Speaker of the House called on the chairman of the House Committee on Rules and Business to move for the House to rescind its previous decision, which is the passage of the Electoral Act bill in 2025. So that needs to be rescinded so it can be recommitted to the Committee of the Whole. So that all the 159 clauses that were considered will now they will now start considering them one after another. And when the chairman of the House Committee Rules and Business did that, it was to be put to a voice vote for lawmakers to either vote aye in support or against it. And majority of lawmakers, because the noise was loud for the nays, they were like they don't want that decision to be rescinded. And the chairman, the Speaker of the House, the Speaker of the House then called for an executive session. We are hoping that during the executive session, they were going to iron whatever was the issue. But when they came out, they had to continue the session, and we saw what happened.
The walkout.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much, Idong Joseph, my colleague covering the House of Representatives. Thank you for coming in. Thank you. We're still talking electoral matters, with the clock ticking for the Saturday, 21st February 2026 Abuja Area Council elections. Preparations are already in top gear to ensure success. Following a successful mock accreditation exercise, INEC insists they are ready for the conduct. With over 1.6 million voters expected at the polls in the 6 area councils, all eyes are on the commission for a free, fair, and credible election.
You know that your election can only be good as the logistics is. So that is why partnering with you shows that you are a stakeholder in the electoral process. However, we have noticed some challenges in relation to transport logistics, and we are very concerned and worried. If I will give you some of the examples, most especially at the last Anambra State election, it was almost a disaster because we were almost disappointed. The vehicles that were brought by the unions to transport sensitive materials from Enugu to Oka, we were not particularly happy.
Success usually depends on the level of open discussion we have with the states involved. And so far, over the period of some months, we've been discussing with the FCT Council, and we've discussed all of these gray areas and profiled in solution.
Away from electoral matters, President Bola Tinubu has unveiled Nigeria's Industrial Policy 2025, directing government agencies to ensure its swift implementation to boost production, create jobs, and strengthen the nation's economy. The policy aims at transforming Nigeria's industrial sector by prioritizing local manufacturing, value chain development, and private sector participation. News Central State House correspondent Bettina Nweli reports.
The Nigeria Industrial Policy 2025 was officially launched in Abuja, where the president, represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima, described the initiative as a roadmap for re-engineering the nation's industrial base. The policy seeks to address long-standing challenges, focusing on strengthening value chains, integrating micro, small, and medium enterprises into industrial growth, aligning infrastructure and energy development, and promoting innovation and skills development.
The Nigeria Industrial Policy is an acknowledgement of our deficiencies. We have realized that industrialization is not a wish you think about. It is an action you perform. More than that, we must remind ourselves that this task demands coherence across energy, trade, infrastructure, finance, skills, and innovation. It requires partnership between government and the private sector.
Industry stakeholders welcomed the initiative, with the chairman of Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, describing the policy as progressive and capable of attracting investment while urging protection for local industries.
You have actually given us much more than what we need. The only thing that is remaining, Mr. Vice President, is protection of the industries. Even if you give us money, zero interest, you give us free land with power. If there's no protection, there is no way any industry will thrive here.
Today, we make a declaration as a country, a declaration to ourselves and to the world that industrialization is no longer a distant aspiration, but that industrialization is a disciplined national priority.
The federal government says that the Nigeria Industrial Policy 2025 represents a renewed commitment to economic transformation with emphasis on production, competitiveness, and job creation as key drivers of national development. In Abuja, for News Central, Bettina Nweli.
More than 1.8 billion Muslim faithful across the world are expected to observe the month of fasting from sunrise to sunset each day beginning Wednesday. This follows an official announcement on Tuesday by Saudi Arabia that it cited the crescent moon, marking the beginning of Ramadan 1447. With the Hilal confirmed, the Tarawih prayers will be held after the Isha prayer tonight, while the holy month of Ramadan begins the next day, which is Wednesday. However, only Japan will begin the Ramadan on Thursday, February the 19th, as confirmed by the Hilal Vision Committee after the crescent moon was not sighted. We'll go on a quick break. When we return, we'll be looking at what's happening beyond the shores of Nigeria. Just stay with us. 7 Ghanaian traders have been killed in a suspected terrorist attack in northern Burkina Faso. The victims were part of a group traveling to the town of Titao to buy tomatoes when gunmen stormed the area and opened fire. Ghana's interior minister said the attackers separated men from women before shooting. Several bodies were burned alongside a truck, while some survivors sustained injuries and others managed to escape. Authorities say the victims were buried in Burkina Faso as Ghanaian officials faced difficulties accessing the area due to security risks. The Burkinabe military later moved in to retake the town following the attack. The head of Niger's military junta, Abdulrahmane Tiani, says relations with Algeria have entered a new dynamic following talks with President Abdelmajid Tebboune in Algiers. The meeting comes after months of tension linked to a regional drone incident involving Sahel states. Both leaders pledged renewed cooperation, including plans to begin work after Ramadan on a major gas pipeline project transporting energy from Nigeria through Niger to Algeria. The rapprochement also coincides with the alliance of Sahel states reopening diplomatic engagement with Algeria. Algeria has promised economic and social support for Niger, while outreach to Burkina Faso continues. However, Mali says it should have been consulted on the renewed engagement. Veteran American activist Jesse Jackson has died at 84. His family says his lifelong commitment to justice and equality inspired generations. Jackson rose to prominence as a close associate of Martin Luther King Jr. He founded Operation Push and the Rainbow Coalition to advance social justice and ran for the Democratic presidential nomination in 1984 and 1988. His campaigns boosted African-American participation in national politics, paving the way for Barack Obama's 2008 election. Jackson also served as a mediator in international missions and as the special envoy for Africa under President Bill Clinton. His family urged supporters to continue advocating for civil rights.
Jackson, one of the most recognizable and enduring figures of the American civil rights movement, has died. A Baptist minister turned political force, Jackson rose to national prominence in the 1960s, working alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. he was in Memphis in 1968 when King was assassinated, a moment that would define his life and propel him to carry the movement forward. Through the decades that followed, Jackson refused to let the momentum fade. He founded Operation Push and later the Rainbow Push Coalition, pushing for economic empowerment, voter registration, and political representation for Black Americans. But Jackson did not confine himself to protest. In 1984 and again in 1988, he ran for President of the United States, mounting groundbreaking campaigns that mobilized millions and reshaped the Democratic Party. His Rainbow Coalition strategy brought together minorities, working-class Americans, and progressives in a way that foreshadowed future political realignments. Though he never secured the nomination, his candidacies paved the way for greater diversity at the highest levels of American politics, including the election of Barack Obama 2 decades later. In recent years, Jackson had been living with Parkinson's disease, a diagnosis he revealed in 2017. As his public appearances became rarer, he remained a symbolic bridge to the civil rights generation. Revered by supporters, debated by critics, Jesse Jackson was a figure who believed deeply in expanding the American promise and in turning protest into political power. His death marks the passing of a towering chapter in the struggle for equality and a reminder of how far that struggle has come and how far it still has to go. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagan.
Well, reactions have continued to pour in and sympathy, condolence messages pouring in for Dr. Jesse Jackson. One of those is from Dr. Benga Hashim, who was mourned the passing of the renowned civil rights leader, Reverend Jackson, describing him as one of America's finest moral exports and a global symbol of justice, unity, and democratic struggle. In a tribute issued on Tuesday, Hashim said the death of Reverend Jackson at the age of 84 marks the end of an era in the global pursuit of equality, human dignity, and social justice, noting that his influence extends far beyond the borders of the U.S. Hashim, who served as General Secretary of the Youth Solidarity for South Africa and Nigeria in 1986, described Dr. Jackson as a moral voice molded in the crucible of the struggle for democracy and inclusion. He added that the late civil rights icon stood firmly in the tradition of prophetic activism and carried forward the unfinished work of civil rights movement. He recalled that Reverend Jackson, a close associate of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., helped transform grief into organized resistance and hope into measurable political progress, particularly in the post-King era. According to him, Jackson's leadership of the Rainbow Push Coalition mobilized millions and consistently amplified the voices of the marginalized, the poor, and the excluded, insisting they must have a seat at the table of power. Nigeria's data protection regulator has launched an investigation into Chinese-owned e-commerce platform Temu over alleged violations of the country's data laws. The Nigeria Data Protection Commission said concerns about Temu's data processing practices, including online surveillance, opaque handling of user information, cross-border data transfers, and possible breaches of data minimization rules, prompted the probe. NDPC's chief, Vincent Olatunji, warned that any confirmed non-compliance could attract legal sanctions. Temu, owned by NASDAQ-listed PDD Holdings, managed data for about 12.7 million Nigerians and 70 million daily users worldwide. The company has rapidly expanded in Nigeria with its discount-driven app-based marketplace. Nigeria's Dangote Group has sealed a $400 million equipment agreement with China's Zhuzhou Construction Machinery Group to accelerate expansion of its oil refinery toward a targeted capacity of 1.4 million barrels per day. The deal would supply heavy-duty machinery to support ongoing projects in refining, petrochemicals, agriculture, and infrastructure, with completion projected within 3 years. Polypropylene capacity will increase to 2.4 million tons annually, while urea output will triple to 9 million tons, strengthening the group's global position. The company, owned by Aliko Dangote, said the investment aligns with the goal of becoming a $100 billion enterprise by 2030. Warner Bros. Discovery on Tuesday rejected a renewed $30 per share hostile bid from Paramount Skydance, but granted the studio 7 days to submit a best final offer. Paramount had informally floated a $31 per share. Yet Warner signaled preference for its merger with Netflix, saying the rival proposal is not superior. Paramount has since February the 23rd improved its bid, which Netflix can match. Paramount's total offer values the company at $108.4 billion, while Netflix's $82.7 billion bid covers only studio and streaming assets. A shareholder vote is set for March the 20th. Well, that's it on the 6th edition for today. Before we go, let's see what our headlines looked like earlier. We told you that the Nigerian Senate has passed the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, even as protest resumed over real-time transmission of votes. We also told you that Saudi Arabia has announced sighting of the crescent moon as fasting begins on Wednesday. A United States civil rights leader, Jesse Jackson, dies at age 84. Remember, you may send your eyewitness report and comments to the WhatsApp number showing on your screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, AVO TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Neota Igbe.